couple years now, and she's awesome. She runs Ashton Events. You guys might have heard of that. And Brian Seeley is actually a neighbor of mine, and he lives down in the Parker Street neighborhood. And so why don't we do this, go first. Just tell us kind of like what your organization does and who you are. Whoever wants to start.
I'll go. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Holtz. I am a local designer and artist, and I am starting a collaborative art studio in the Midtown district known as Mass Market. My function is to serve as a facilitator for moving contemporary arts forward in Lakeland. So it'll be a collaborative studio and gallery space.
And I am Laura Helm. Again, like Tara mentioned, I own Ashton Events, which is a event planning, design, and floral company. But then just a little bit of a backstory, which is kind of a full circle. Last year at Q Commons was when I had a conversation with someone who said, if you could bring anything to Lakeland, what would it be? And I said, a large-scale event venue. We need one in Lakeland to get it moving in the event industry. So that actually happened at the beginning of this year, which was just crazy and really fun. So we'll be, I started another company that's going to be bringing an event venue to the Mass Market project, and then we also will have an office space that will have 7 different offices that will have creative industry companies in.
Hey, I'm Ryan. So Gospel Inc. is a mission where members of our community and ministry have moved into the Parker Street neighborhood. I myself live there, and others have done the same, with the goal of being good neighbors and just loving neighbors to the homeless. So we work specifically with the homeless. And as a community, we are very engaged with one another, and that sort of pours into the homeless community that's there. I'd like to tell a story to kind of illustrate that for you. So this past Sunday, there's a homeless friend of mine who brought his friend to church, and she's 19 years old. This is my first time meeting her. Strong Tower Church, so we walked to church. Strong Tower is planted by Parker Street Ministry members, people who have been living there for years, and with the goal of reaching the neighborhood. So I attend that church, and they welcomed me into their community. And so this girl's in there, and my friend's like, hey, she needs help, so we sit down. She tells me this horrendous story of abuse and neglect from very early on. At 12 years old, she was doing meth with her mom. She was emancipated from her home at age 15, pregnant. And just recently, at the age of 19, she was shooting heroin in her neck. So this is kind of where she's at, right? So there's this broken person sitting in front of me. We're eating pork and, I don't know, potatoes or something. And my jaw is just dropping. I'm like, what, how do I even respond to this? And so how that kind of has played out is I've helped her to, get a birth certificate and ID. And in the day that we did that, she had multiple breakdowns. I kind of counseled her through these things that she's facing. And then I called a girl from Grace City Church and said, hey, would you be willing to reach out to this girl and kind of take her in to church and just kind of be there for her through this thing that she's walking through? And then another resident from the neighborhood who's living there in Parker Street neighborhood, I reached out to her because this girl needs a haircut. She's a hairstylist. And I said, hey, would you, be willing to give her a haircut? And she's like, yeah. So what it looks like to be a community living in the neighborhood and caring for people together as the body of Christ, that's kind of what it looks like. It's surrounding people like her with love, people who really have nobody. Her family destroyed everything she has, and so we're moving into her life. That's what moving into the neighborhood means for us.
Yeah, and
sorry, that was kind of long.
No, it's wonderful, and it actually helps us give us some things to talk about and a good segue. And I think one thing that I love about the Parker Street neighborhood is that it is intentional living, and that's what the point of this panel is. It's how can you be an effective neighbor? And so I think a lot of times as Christians, we think we go in and we do some type of mission trip and everything's great, but the people of Parker Street are working on if you can't meet our physical needs, it's hard to meet our spiritual needs as well. And so the neighbors together are working together, and so it's easy not easy, it's a difficult thing to do, to be in that neighborhood. And so you explained that some there. And so, but what I want to hear next is Laura and Elizabeth, you guys are bringing a new thing into the neighborhood. And so you're not necessarily running a nonprofit like Gospel Inc. or like Parker Street, but you're moving an effective business into the neighborhood. And so what does that look like, and how does that help raise the neighborhood?
Well, I mean, we could talk about the economic impact of bringing in businesses, new businesses, desirable businesses into the neighborhood, and what that means for ministries like Gospel Inc. and Parker Street Ministries. It means there's going to be more foot traffic, which means from just a practical standpoint, it's going to make the neighborhood safer because more people are going to be around. You're also moving desirable businesses into the area, and so the property is going to be uplifted, literally, both like tangibly and just in terms of what kinds of people are going in and operating there. So, I mean, just from an economic sustainability standpoint, there's like some serious like positive impact just to bring desirable businesses there. So.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the reasons that I immediately got really excited about this specific neighborhood we're moving into is that in the event industry, we're in there for 12 hours for a venue or for an event. So you've got 200 people showing up that have never seen Lakeland before. They're coming in from out of town. You're introducing them to Lakeland and this whole experience for a weekend, but then they're coming into this community, and there's a foot traffic part of it, but there's also just the natural exposure to Lakeland and just a lot of opportunity for us to be able to provide extra jobs. I think for me, just seeing the excess in the event industry has been a struggle. So seeing extra food wasted, all of those sorts of things. So being able to trim that back by having local ministries that we can bring food to at the end of the night instead of throw it away. And one of our long-term goals, because we'll actually have a floral studio for Ashton events in the office space, is to be able to start a nonprofit that will repurpose flowers and distribute them in the community after an event. So we're really excited.
I love that, and I love, I feel like a lot of times when businesses and things come in, there's this fear of gentrification, and so, but these are working with the people that live in the neighborhood already to help raise the neighborhood, and so we're not sweeping through and doing something